going on? It is Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Today, as you can see, joining me right here is my man, Chosen. Chosen, what's up, dude? How you doing, man?
What's up? How you doing? Thanks for having me, Ash.
Yeah, no problem, dude. It's been a while since we connected. Not really, because we just recorded a video for your channel. We talked for like almost an hour, so that was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun.
Guys, if you don't know, I'm sure you know, Chofly it's Chofly Elite though. Didn't you just change your channel?
Yeah. I wanted it to match the team that I run in game. So
Heck yeah.
the mobile and elite got a little confusing, so I just made it consistent.
All right, you guys can see that channel link in his social media as well, linked in the show notes below. Check him out, guys. And that video will be up in the next few days, he said, the interview that we already had. But today, I want to go ahead and talk specifically about, is Raid Shadow Legends going to survive? Like, is this game, because we've gone through some tumultuous times, to say the least, right? I think that's no secret to anybody that they've kind of struggled with the player base, and I really wanted to get your take on these specific issues, and then more so like looking towards the future, because you know we could sit here and catalog as the past forever here, man, but so give me your take on things. How have things been as a Raid Shadow Legends content creator, as a YouTuber? How have things been with you lately? Like, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, no, it's been good. The community is definitely up in arms, and I've kind of always said it's justifiable. I do love the community, but there's been a lot more of a negative sentiment recently, which I totally get and understand. I've said before, I don't really blame the players for being negative, because it's kind of the environment that has been kind of perpetuated by Plarium in terms of, you know, teasing things that don't come out, and then you know, having a Draco gate that you try to cover up, and just all sorts of, it's going to cause people to kind of be up in arms. So I think the fault there isn't really of the players. And then just to kind of touch on, you had mentioned if Raid's dying or whatever. So Raid as an RPG in the App Store was all the way up to about number 5 or 6 on the Apple iStore, or on the Apple iOS store. And it dropped to about 22. So it went from like number 6 to number 22. And I was looking down while you were doing your intro. I was pulling it up on my phone. It's actually back up to number 12 now. So it's kind of recovering a little bit. So it went from like 6 about, you know, a month or 6 weeks ago. And it dropped all the way down like into the early 20s. And now, currently, as we're speaking, it's number 12. So it has actually rebounded a little bit. But, you know, it's going to be tough. They're going to need to kind of release some actual content to the game if they want it to get back to that, like, staple top 10 level consistently again, I think.
Yeah, I see, like, we've talked a little bit, like, looking back at all, like, the faux pas that they've had, or even worse, like, the controversies they've had, or the serious issues in the community over the last, like, 3, 4, 5 months. Does anything stand out at you as being like a big major problem that still needs to be addressed today? Or are these things that you feel like, and feel free to mention if they do, what it is, what sticks in your mind, but are these things that we can kind of get past as a community? You already cited the trending upwards again on the charts. What do you say to that?
I definitely think it's things we can get past, but it does need to quit happening. It's kind of like, if you're in a relationship, your significant other is only going to forgive you so many times before they eventually just say, you know what, I'm done. Like Plarium can only, you know, screw over the players and go back on their words so many times. You'll get to the point where sorry doesn't mean anything. You'll get to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, you stayed out till 4 a.m. and you got drunk again and came home at 5 a.m. and you said sorry, but then you did it again the next night. So, you know, so, you know, Plarium's going to get to the point where apologies don't really mean anything, and they're getting dangerously close to that line. I think people in general will typically lean towards being forgiving. If you just, Plarium's problem is they just have horrible damage control. I don't know what their PR team is, but like, if you make a mistake and you just come out and say, hey, this happened and I'm sorry, and I'm going to do whatever I can in the future to prevent it from happening again, people will generally, you know, lean towards forgiving you, because everybody's made mistakes in life. And as long as you own up to it, people will generally give you a second chance. But when you sit here and dig your heels in and grind your teeth and say, no, we gave him Dracomorph because of faction wars, and we were gonna. It's like, and then people are just like, are you serious? Like,
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And what you're referring to is basically when they gift after like a streamer was incredibly frustrated that he didn't get a certain champion, they gifted him it essentially. So that was a huge deal. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. Honestly, I think that you hit the nail on the head. It's not about making mistakes, which they've made. It's about how they approach them afterwards, and I think that that's a big issue that hopefully they improve on. I think that there's people like people, a certain humility in people, right? And they like when people mess up if they're just they're incredibly apologetic and genuine in it, and they don't say we're sorry but, or we made a mistake however, and that's how the tone that they often use. But in terms of the game itself, right, forget about like the mismanagement of the community at times. Are you happy with the state of the game itself?
No, I'm not happy with the state of the game because it's been so long since there's been actual new content to explore. I think the last thing that would qualify as new content would be Faction Wars. And I mean, we're coming up on, I don't like, what, 5 months since Faction Wars
And you've been
came
playing
out?
since the beginning of the game pretty much, or very close to, right?
Since like the actual beginning, but I came in basically right when Raid kind of became a thing. There was people before me, but I got within the first like month or so. And yeah, the problem is they teased a bunch of content, 3v3
It was that
arena
roadmap,
or whatever,
right, or whatever.
yeah. And my interview with Cirilla, she had mentioned how that was a good learning experience for them because they thought they were going to be able to get all this done, and they kind of their eyes got bigger than their capabilities, and they thought they'd be able to get all this stuff in the game. And then when it turns out, things come up, whatever, we don't know the behind the scenes. You never know if people quit or if you have an error in the code that sets you back a couple weeks. You don't know what happens as a developer, but things came up, and for whatever reason, they got behind schedule, and then obviously they're going to get the backlash, because if you promise somebody something and then take it away, that's going to be way worse than if you had just never mentioned it at all.
So we're almost left feeling like unfulfilled. Like, wait, there's all these great ideas that you guys are aware of and allegedly were working on for 2019, and here we are, mid-March of 2020, and not only do we not see those things in game, but there's it doesn't feel like they're on the horizon. Am I off base there? It doesn't feel like there's a major update on like coming in a month or so. Like to me, and maybe I don't, you follow it way closer than I do, but to me it seems like we're still a few months away, if that, if not more, of like then a major feature update. And who's to say if that feature is, we got a small patch today, but what do you think? What timeline would satisfy you other than yesterday for some new content?
What would satisfy me is just transparency of what happened. Instead of PR answers, like say, hey, we did have plans, but this happened, this setback happened, and you can realistically expect this to come out by this date, but we can't guarantee it. Because right now, like you said, it's your guess is as good as mine. I mean, it could be a month, it could be 4 months. We don't, like you said, it doesn't really feel like anything's on the horizon. So I think a really good, just transparent post of, hey, some things got delayed, but this is what you can expect at this time. So at least, and I'm kind of going back on what I said of it'd be better to just not say anything at all than to promise something and rip it away. But I think some transparency in terms of, hey, this isn't a guarantee, but we're hoping that this is going to come out by, May or something. And so you can be excited about that. But right now we don't really get any transparency. And the thing that's frustrating is, they say like, oh, even the smallest changes, they take a lot of time to implement. Like that's their excuse for not adding the clan boss damage counter, which is something super simple that would help every player to have a live damage counter during your clan boss fight. And they say, oh, even the smallest change really takes time. But yet Platinum Arena is brand new, and they can add 2 new sets and completely rework the whole reward system and create tiers in platinum, 1 through 3 and 4 through 20 and 21 through 300, and completely restructure it, but you can't add a live damage counter. Like,
yeah, no, I think that's valid. It's a valid point. And I mentioned this before. I mentioned this on the interview on your channel too. But I just want to see more kind of mechanisms and vehicles in the game that would apply to a wider player base. Like I said again to you earlier, is that I don't have a problem with the new epic gear. I do have a problem with they added like this new when I mean epic, I seem like god tier gear. Yeah. But this god tier gear seems so unobtainable, and what it's gonna do is just widen the gap further between free to play. Not when I say free to play, I just mean like non, $10,000 plus spenders in everybody else, right? I feel like this is gonna widen that divide. I don't feel like that's a really healthy kind of overall ecosystem for any game, is to have like the haves and the have-nots, let alone like a society. But you can treat a video game like a little society. So where do you fit? Where do you stand? Chosen on like the discrepancy between the non-spenders and the spenders in the game, and is that going to come back to bite Plarium from your vantage point, being so tapped into the community? Like, where do you see the temperature right now in terms of that?
Yeah, I think obviously in games like this, there's always going to be a benefit to spending money. That's just impossible to avoid, really. And it wouldn't make sense to not have it be like that, because if there was no incentive to spend money, then the game wouldn't make any money. So that incentive is always going to be there. But I think the problem that these companies fall into is they aren't, like you said in talking to me earlier, is just to kind of double down on that, is it's very short-sighted. Do you want $1 today or $10 a year from now? Is kind of, and when you cater to your casual players instead of your whales, you can really develop the backbone of your game. And we're seeing that in the market. Why does League of Legends take over? Because it's free to play and people download it. Why does Path of Exile come out of nowhere and compete with Diablo 3? Because it's free to play. You can just download it and start playing, and Diablo is, $30 or $40. You need to cater towards getting a player base into your game for free and cheaply. And then that will create the ecosystem that you need for content providers to come into your game and whales to come into your game, because they want to beat the casual players. So you really you don't have to cater to the whales. You have to cater to the player base and getting the casuals and the free-to-play players not only playing your game, but happy and enjoying your game. And it seems like Plarium is mainly focused on how do we get the whales to spend more money. So we see these new gear sets that are coming out for Platinum to try to get the whales to compete harder and spend more to maintain or get into Platinum. And it's like, yeah, that will probably make you a decent amount of money in the short term. But if all of your casual players are quitting behind the scenes, it's going to nip you, a year down the road. So it's trying to get a company to manage that balance of worrying about the short term and the long term, instead of focusing on only the short term, which is what we seem to be getting with Plarium.
Low-hanging fruit, right? I really would love you to share. I don't want to steal all the content from our last interview, but I want you to really share with my audience. It shows it is the idea that you had for book farming, which is so necessary in this game. And I feel like, I don't want to overstate it, but at the risk of overstating it, I feel like having some way for us to farm books is so crucial for the longevity of this game. It's a huge component in upgrading champions, and right now it's so difficult. If you were so incredibly lucky to pull a legendary champion, it's next to impossible unless you're buying the books to actually upgrade them.
Yep, I've had this idea for a while. And so, similar to the Minotaur mechanic, which I think we both agree, the Minotaur mechanic is a pretty good mechanic. You've got your scrolls, and each tier gets tougher and tougher to get. But you also have your pay-to-win version where you can just go ahead and gem it. But if you're willing to grind it out, it does end up being a little bit more efficient. Free-to-play players can do the Minotaur as well. It just takes a little bit longer. The whales can do it a little bit faster. So it's a pretty well-designed mechanic all the way around. So I'm saying have a book dungeon, a boss that drops pages. rare pages craft into rare books, epic pages craft into epic books, and so on. And the higher up you get in the dungeon, the more likely you are to get epic and legendary pages and more of them. And each tier gets tougher and tougher to acquire. That way, your whales, they can get books. Yeah, maybe they can get them a little bit faster. But your free-to-play players, they can actually gear out an arena team that they farm, that they're willing to dedicate to farming the books for. And it would be a similar functioning mechanic to the Minotaur, where yes, the whales have a benefit to do it faster and easier, but the free-to-play players still have access to gearing out a squad, and it's kind of a healthy ecosystem if you design it and structure it like that.
No, 100%. I think that's an amazing idea. And it seems so obvious now that you say it. It's like, yeah, we need that, right? Like, now let me ask you this. This is taking that one step further, because I also think that, listen, it's cool that legendaries are very tough to obtain. Like, I like that it's really special when you get them. And I wouldn't want to devalue all the legendaries that people have spent a lot of money to get too. So you have to always think about that in terms of the economic ramifications. But so like, for example, looking at potions, right? Looking at like faction crypt, for example, or I'm looking at like what was the word I'm looking for? Just potions, right?
Yeah, yep.
I'm gonna restart that one. So because what the hell are they called?
The potion keeps?
Yeah, potion keeps.
Yep.
Arcane keep is the one I was thinking of. Okay.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. But like, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but looking at like the arcane keep, for example, the potion keep. So if you can like upgrade your potions, you can convert them into other things. So is it ridiculous to think that there's some way to potentially do that with shards? Like, and I don't think it should be easy. I think it should take like a lot of shards, ancient shards, for example, or it should take like 1,000. I don't know. I don't know the numbers, but shouldn't there be an upscaling opportunity for shards as well, to make it just a little bit easier to at least farm up to sacred shards? They're so impossible to get. They have such a huge value. I don't know. What do you think?
I think, yeah, I mean, that would be a good mechanic for sure. It'd be really tough to structure it, because you have people like overnight farming mystery shards and brutal, and then they would wake up in the morning with 1,000 mystery shards and be converting them into so you'd have to be careful, because it might further the gap between your pay to win and your free to play.
That's true.
But like I said earlier, it's really a tough line to walk where you're not furthering that gap. So I do think it's a good idea. It'd be really tough to pull it off well, but I do think it'd be cool. And I really think it'd be cool if you could craft like, rare books into epic books, and like 3 rare books become an epic book, and then like 2 epic books become a legendary book or something. So people have a little bit of leeway in terms of, similar to potions, how you can craft them up. So yeah, I don't know. The shard thing would be cool, but I think it'd be really hard to pull off.
What about duplicate legendaries? I know they mentioned at one point in the Q&A or something that they have like ideas to make it way more rewarding to when you pull a duplicate. There's nothing better than pulling a legendary in this game, and there's nothing kind of more awkwardly defeating than pulling a duplicate legendary. So what do you think ought to happen when you pull a duplicate legendary?
Yeah, they have said that they've got epic plans for epic, or for duplicates in the game. That was like 3 months ago, and these epic plans must be on the back burner. But I think I've always kind of said the way I would do duplicates is have like did you ever play Hearthstone?
No, but I've watched it enough to
So you know how there's a regular version of the card and there's a golden version. Mm-hmm. I think there should be like a next tier, like an awakened version of a champion, and you get that when you get the duplicate. So if I have Bad Alcazar and I pull another Bad Alcazar, I can feed my duplicate into like awakening my Bad Alcazar into the golden version, and then it would be kind of a status symbol, like, oh wow, this guy in the arena has a golden Bad Alcazar. Like you can tell, okay, they got the champion twice, and they got the golden version. That's so sick. Like I think that'd be one way to do the duplicates. Also, you could make the duplicates, if people don't like that idea, you could make it so you have like a choice to trade that in for, like, say I summon a duplicate legendary, I have the choice to trade it in for another sacred shard and a legendary book. So I can I get a legendary book for free for summoning that champion, and then I can get my sacred shard back and resummon. But I might get an epic, so you'd have to kind of weigh your options there. But in terms of if you summon like a duplicate trash legendary, okay, I'll take my book and I'll resummon. Like that type of mechanic could also work out pretty well.
Yeah, I actually like that idea. Maybe 2 sacred shards. Nah, I'm just getting greedy. But, but nah, you're right. The fact that you don't get anything except for, another, legendary is so unsatisfying. So obviously these are kind of like little issues, I guess, in the overall scheme of things. We talked about a lot too on your video, but in terms of anything else that kind of comes to mind in terms of like the longevity of this game, when you look beyond just the next patch or the next year of patches, like what do you need to see? Do they need to focus more on adding value adds to the clan system, or is it or expanding clans, like or do you see it as coming more in the individual game in terms of just the mechanics or dungeons and stuff like that, like the single player experience?
Yeah, definitely more social features. If they want this game to have 4 or 5 year longevity, they're gonna need more social aspect, a better developed clan system, especially the clan boss, where you don't have clans fighting with each other over damage. Maybe some sort of clan battle system or clan wars. I don't know how to implement it off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's possible in a game like Raid. So yeah, more like clan versus clan competition and more social feature and social interaction. Maybe even like you can farm up tokens that allow you to trade with people on your friends list. Like, oh, I got this token, and it's super rare drop. Like it drops once every 1,000 runs or once every 2,000 runs, like a trade token. And hey, I'll give you apothecary if you give me such and such. Like more ecosystem based on people interacting and competing with each other is definitely needed if this game wants longevity.
Would it be awful to, as another solution to pulling duplicate legendaries, would it be awful to allow people to trade duplicates? Like you can only trade them if you have a duplicate, though?
Yeah, that's obviously a great idea for the players.
But for Plarium, is it great? Yeah, right.
So that getting them to do that for the player base would be a tough sell. But yeah, obviously it'd be a great thing for the players.
No, that's absolutely true, though. Okay, so listen, we talked about give me your final take. Then I have a couple rapid fire questions for you. Give me your final take on okay, we talked about all the issues. We talked about, that we still love the game despite them. But are you optimistic looking forward, or are you pessimistic? Do you think they'll actually make these changes? Do you see yourself covering this game in 3 years?
Ooh. I would put the over under if I was a betting man. I would put the over under on me covering this game at like, I don't know, about 20 months, probably just under 2 years is where I would set the over under. I haven't seen the consistent care about the player base. They actually are surprisingly nice to the content providers and how they interact with us and stuff. But in terms of caring about the players, we would definitely need to see more of that. And I haven't seen the consistent development of content and consistent cranking out of things that make players happy for me to really say I would be comfortable in saying I'll be covering this game in 3 or 4 years. But I think conservatively a year and a half for sure. I am, positive about the outlook, especially with it bouncing back from dropping from 6 to like 21 and then bouncing back to number 12. I do think the game has some staying power for another year or two yet. And hopefully they can get it turned around and it'll be 3 to 5 years instead.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I mean, I love your content, obviously. You're the first channel, I should have probably mentioned this at the beginning, but you're the first guy who kind of got me into your YouTube channel, got me into Raid Shadow Legends from a sponsored video on my main channel. So thank you for that. And I love the game ever since. And I'm kind of a newcomer to the game, like 4 months ago or whatever. So it's weird. Like a lot of these pain points don't affect me as dramatically because I just haven't been playing for years, waiting for a year plus waiting for these things to be added and stuff, So I'm coming with like maybe a fresher perspective. But I definitely can understand, and I mentioned this in your video too, but people should know that you guys, you and the other creators strongly advocate for the player base on a daily basis two-player him. I'm in the chats. I see you guys. You guys fight hard to get these things, moving in the right direction. So kudos to you for that and the rest of the content creators out there. A couple rapid fires for you, man. Give me your favorite champion of each rarity. Well, rares and above.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be the best, just your fave, like one of your faves.
Okay. My favorite rare would be Apothecary, which I guess is the standard answer. I just think he's so generally useful and he helps a lot of people progress in the game. My favorite epic, gosh, you're putting me on the spot here.
It can just be one that you happen to use a lot or something,
Yeah. Gosh, Tayrell and Miscreated Monster are probably. I don't know if they would be my favorite. Let me pull up my roster here.
I think while you're going, I'll answer too. I think my favorite epic is Miscreated Monster is so cool, man, and he's so good. I only use him in one dungeon. I only use him in spiders, but he's so cool. I like him.
I know my answer. Once I pulled up my roster, my favorite epic as far as Royal Guard.
Okay.
So much utility, and you can build so many cool teams.
He's fighting right now on the screen behind you. He's standing right above your head.
No, he's just got so much utility in terms of tuning specific strategies for things. I love Royal Guard. And then my favorite legendary is obviously Battle Khazar. I base my channel art on him as a champion, and the first night I downloaded the game and I was going through the roster, I was like, this champion is so sick. And I was reading the abilities. I was like, oh my gosh, this champion's insane. I was like, I'll never have him, but he's insane. Mm-hmm. And so my most popular Twitch clip is when I pulled Battle Khazar, and I was like running around my apartment screaming. And so yeah, definitely, that was definitely probably my favorite moment as a raid player over the last year, was when I finally pulled my favorite champion.
Nice, man. That's really cool. That's congrats on that too. And it's just like, yeah, dude, I just got defeated back to back in Ice Golem's Peak. I need to switch my teams around. But yeah, I think that my favorite legendary is just recently, and I mentioned this in a couple of my videos, but I'm not sure what you think of him. I'm not saying he's the best, but like maybe it's the rise from worst to first or worst to decent is Shamrock. I'm a big fan of Shamrock. Do you have him, or have you seen, like, do you have any thoughts on him after the buff?
I do. I have a maxed out Shamrock.
Okay, you like him?
I do. Most of my dungeon teams are pretty well oiled machines at this point.
Yeah.
That are doing 30, 40-second runs. So it's tough for me to fit somebody in. But Shamrock is a pretty useful champion. The buff was pretty well done. Wasn't exactly how I would have done it, but I think it definitely brought him from trash tier to pretty decent, and he's very good in faction wars. And there's also some strats you can do to make him shine in many different areas of the game. So yeah, I think that's a good one. I think he's a pretty cool champion.
Yeah, I really like. I don't even know why. Apothecary is kind of like this too, right? Where you have him on your team, and like you're just like, wow, my team is so much better, and like why. But when you look at his kit, sometimes you're just like, yeah, well, it's cool, whatever. And Shamrock, for some reason, I feel the same way. Like I was not even overwhelmed by the buff at all. But then I ran him instead of like whoever on a couple of my teams, and for some reason the team was just better. Maybe it was just like, I love the Lucky Charm, so it has the above and below 50%. So whatever you need at the time, it gives you that. But this video is not about Shamrock, so I'll end it.
That's okay.
But hey, what's your favorite Affinity?
Definitely Void, because it's I like consistency. I like knowing what I'm gonna get out of a team. And you can just forget about the whole affinity system and just use Void. So definitely my favorite one is Void. And if not Void, it would probably be Force, because most of the champions in the game are Force. So being able to counter the Magic Affinity, I guess, would be being able to counter the most common affinity would
Magic,
probably be
with Force, yeah. Okay, I have if you had to go in blindly into one arena match right now, didn't know your opponents, what team would you run?
If I had to build one, just kind of general arena
or
team.
Let's put it this way. I was going to give you $1 million if you could run the 10, like closer to your high trophies, right? Run all 10 of them and win every match. What would be your 4 champions out of your collection that you would go with?
For like consistency and like safe and trying to counter the most stuff, probably Arbiter, so that I can try to go first. and have the speed aura. And then Tormund, in case they run a speed buffing team, I've got a chance to clutch it and freeze them and win it besides that. And then maybe Rosin, just for the turn meter reduction, and is possibly get me another team over, or another a turn over them, and pretty good damage, and he's defense based, so he'll be pretty sustainable. And gosh, I'd love to squeeze like a buffer for my toughness, so maybe Whirlim Frost King. I'm going
Oh,
all
really? You
I'm
like
going
him?
all yeah, I'm going all defense and like super sustain and freezing and clutching and getting more speed and more turns than my opponent. So yeah, I would either go with like a Valkyrie for like super sustain and the shield and counterattacking and constant value, or I would probably end up going with like a Whirlwind just to kind of give me the most generally useful team. But that for that team to work in Platinum, the gear would have to be absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would technically work at like the top of Platinum, but in terms of at my rank right now, if I just had to, build a most generally useful team and for like the top of Gold 4, that's what I would do.
Okay, my last question for you is your top 3 gear sets in any order, like your top 3. I know you have a video on this too. I'll link it.
Oh no, that's okay.
Yeah.
I love the Relentless set. You can do a lot of cool things with it, but the downside is it's inconsistent and you don't know exactly what you're going to be getting. And then obviously the speed set is probably the best in the game because you can wear it on any champion in any situation. So I love that set. And then after that, probably the defense set because it's the most valuable stat in the game. That's why there's no divine defense set. You see divine HP and divine attack and all that stuff, but you don't get a divine defense set because it would be like too broken, I guess they think maybe, or maybe they're going to add it down the road. But yeah, that's probably my 3 like sets that I like, gearing champions out with the most, I guess.
Is there one set that you feel is like underrated in terms of like one of the other sets you didn't mention, the non-obvious? Is there one set that you're like, oh, people are sleeping on that set or whatever?
The shield set, I don't know if it's underrated, but I don't think people use it enough. It can be really good.
Yeah.
In terms of helping you for like your Fire Knight to keep people alive, getting to the boss. You can keep like your Cold Hearts and your Allures alive when you get to the boss. So I'll throw a shield set on a couple different people just to keep them alive, for longer fights, and it lowers my average clear time. Stalwart is a slept on set that is actually pretty decent. The 30% AoE reduction. AoE is very common in Raid, so it's basically just a huge damage mitigation. The stun set is amazing in Dungeons and Faction Wars. As far as the one that's super undersold, those all really aren't. I'm scrolling through the list here.
They're all suck.
Those are all at least used a little bit. I think the Reflex set is pretty undersold. That would be my final answer.
Okay.
Being able to reduce cooldown, it's basically like a baby Relentless set there. So I would say Reflex is super undersold.
Okay, sounds good, man. Well, thank you for answering the rapid fire questions. I clearly need to work on my Ice Golem team in the background here. We're over 3. You know what it is like when you ever do videos, I don't know what your process is, but you ever do videos and then you like sub in different champs just for a video, and then you forget what your main team was, and I'm like, oh, I forgot who works on this thing.
See, I got wise. I started doing a print screen and saving it. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna forget.
Dude, I need to do that too. Well, hey, listen, Chosen, thank you so much for coming on the channel, man. Very generous of you to come on and talk about the future of a raid and answering some fun questions at the end, man. So I'll include again his channel link for you guys. Check him out. His Twitter information, everything will be there for you guys in the show notes below. Any final words, man, or we good to go?
Hey, no, we're good to go. I appreciate you. It's always fun to catch up and do a collab with you. So thanks for having me.
Likewise, man. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. And as always, take care, guys.